Alright, so in the previous tutorial we have seen that how we can handle for or for not found errors, and now let's see how we can improve our error handling mechanism further. So as I mentioned you in the previous tutorial session, sometimes when it generates the response, the error response through our global error handler middleware, it basically leaks the unnecessary details as well, right? For example, if you are trying to creating a post with an invalid title, it basically says what is an error and what is the record that error exists and the error message. So error message is quite okay, but exposing these sort of details to the client is not quite secure, right? So we need to avoid this stuff as well. So this is the place we encounter this development and production level separation. I think up until to this section there was no separation like that. All we focused was just pure development. But when it comes to production level, production grade standards, we need to be more careful when we are exposing our responses to the client. Right, so now let's see how we can handle this development and production level separation. So yeah, I think we haven't done that. Okay, let's do it then. So first thing I need to do is I need to specify our environment as production or development. So in our config.env we have done that. So it basically defines what is the environment that we are currently working. So currently we are in the development mode, but if I switched into the production mode, it will simply say we are in the production mode. So based on this development or production level or environment, we need to expose or we need to disclose several information to the client, specifically when it comes to the error handling. So yeah, so instead of directly passing a generic error message like that, I will define two functions to handle this explicitly depending on our environment. So let's say let's say if I'm in the development mode, then send a dev error, right? But if I'm in the production mode, then send a client error, right? So client error is basically less descriptive because we don't need to expose a lot of details to the client. So I will define two functions. Let's say send error for dev, and it has error and it has a response, right? Likewise, I need another function to send error for prod, which is production level, right? So in the development level, I need this sort of a error first, but with some additional details. So let's say I need to be aware of what is the error, right? So error can be displayed like that, and what is the error message, and what is the maybe let's say error goes here, and maybe let's say what is the stack trace, right? So error dot stack. So the developer will receive whole lot of information as the response, because he's a developer, right? So he need to clearly understand what is the error and what is the origin of the error and how the error is invoked, things like that. So that's why I have returning a whole lot of information over here like that. But when it comes to the client side, or let's say production level, he shouldn't be having these sort of information. Instead of that, he will having regular informations like this. But again, this is quite descriptive, right? Because if you look at our post one, it will expose everything, which is not quite relevant to the client as well. So these sort of errors are known as trusted errors, which means if we know a specific client can be trusted, then we can invoke these sort of an error. But if we doesn't aware of a client, whether it is trusted or not trusted, untrusted, then we shouldn't leak this sort of information. So that's why, if you remember, in the app error object, app error class, I have defined this parameter is operational, right? So is operational basically distinguish these trusted and unknown users. So this distinguishes trusted user and unknown user, right? So if is operational is true means this user is trusted, and is operational is false means this user is not trusted, which means unknown user. So that is sort of a standard that we are going to follow when we are exposing our details to the client in the production level. So in the global error handler, now I can use that error parameter to distinguish those two users. So I will simply use if else block, and if the error is operational, we can expose these details because user is trusted now. But if it is not trusted, which means user is unknown, we shouldn't expose details like this. Instead of that, we can simply say, let's say our status is an error, right? And let's say it's a server-side error, which means 500, and the error is simply something went wrong, right? Something went wrong. Therefore, we don't expose any other details to the client, right? Right. So if you look into this app error, by default it is true, which means all the errors will be currently considered as trusted errors. But later on you can change this to the false, then, which means you are not trusting any of your clients as trusted authorities, which means you can return this sort of an error. Or later on, when we are doing authentication and authorization stuff, based on their user role, we can set this parameter dynamically as well, right? So whole lot of stuff can be done, but currently I am showing you the big picture of the entire scenario. Right, now we have sort of a separation there. So this is development level error handling, and this is production level error handling, right? Then based on the environment that we are working on, we need to invoke these functions. So we can do that simply by going to this layer, and let's make another if else block, and if process.env.node.env is development, right, which means we are in the development environment, then it must call this function, right? Send error for D. So simply pass error and response as parameters. Then if not, which means we are in the production level, so else statement will be called, and inside this else statement we must call send error for prod, and we need to pass error and response as parameters, right? So I don't need this response because response will be generated over here. So in order to understand what happens, I will make logs as well. So let's say log dev error invoked, something like that, and let's say prod error invoked, right? Which means production level error has been invoked. And currently we are in the development mode, which means if I encounter an error now, it must go to this level, right? Now let's say if I invoke this function again, it will simply go to the dev error invokes section, and you can see it is more descriptive, right? It have a lot of content, what is the error and what is the stack trace, everything will be there, right? So developer can easily understand what is the error and what is the origin of it, and he can easily solve the error. But when it comes to the client side, he shouldn't aware of any of this stuff, which means if I let's say if I switch our environment to the production level and restart the server, so now I'm in the production mode, and if I invoke this function again, it will simply return something went wrong, right? Because user shouldn't aware of any of the errors that we are currently invoking, right? But yes, there is an certain issue, because now it doesn't show what is the error as well, right? It simply says something went wrong, which is not quite user friendly as well. So we need to show to the user what is the error exactly, right? Otherwise the user may get confused. So yeah, that thing we can done in the next video maybe, but let me quickly review the current code to check whether there is any error or not. So is operational, yeah, it is correct, and it goes to the error message. Yeah, so let's make a log here as well. Let's say trusted user, and here let's say unknown user, and let's invoke this again. Yeah, it goes to the unknown user section, which means this is operational thing somehow setting as false. So let's try to log that as well. Error operational goes here. Yeah, it says it is undefined. yeah, it is undefined because of what reason? So this is operational true, right? And step trace again work, and yeah, and the globe yeah, it uses this step error. Yeah, it happens because this error is not handled via our try block, right? It is generated with respect to our module. So module doesn't aware of app error class, right? Because app error is a class defined by us, right? So module generates this sort of an error, and it will simply construct a generic error object, not the app error object. It's a simple generic error object. So that error object won't be having this sort of a field. So that's why it simply goes to this section, which is unknown user operationing section. But yeah, it works as we intended, right? Because it wasn't an error handled by us, so by default we shouldn't pass those information to the client, right? So our function worked correctly, but later on we need to define certain functions to tell our global handler whether it is an error invoked by this model or not, or things like that. But yeah, it works for now, and in the next video let's see how we can address database errors as well. Alright, so thank you, and I will see you in the next video.